Friday morning, I woke to chainsaws screaming outside my window. My entire Christmas tree farm, 2,000 mature Fraser firs worth $23,000, my daughter's college fund, being harvested and sold by thieves in broad daylight. Fresh stumps bled sap into the frost. Commercial truck tracks scarred my land. The diesel stench poisoned the December air. Zip-tied to my gate, a smug note from HOA President Magnolia Patterson claiming legal seizure of abandoned commercial inventory under agricultural lien authority. This entitled bitch was selling my family's Christmas trees to waiting buyers and pocketing every penny. But Magnolia made one fatal mistake. My hidden 4K cameras captured everything: the theft, the buyers, the money exchange, and her fake legal documents. My 40-acre farm sits 200 feet outside her HOA jurisdiction. What she did was straight-up grand theft with forged paperwork. She just stole from a disabled Army veteran. What would you do? Where are you watching from? And stick around, because by the end of this story, Magnolia lost everything she cared about. Let me back up and tell you how this nightmare started. I'm Rex Thornfield, 52, disabled Army veteran with a busted back from an IED in Afghanistan. My twin daughters Emma and Grace are 16, and 18 months ago we lost their mother Sarah to cancer. The medical bills crushed us like a freight train, but Sarah's life insurance gave us one final gift. That gift was a 40-acre Christmas tree farm I bought for $85,000. Every penny of Sarah's policy. Walking through those rows of Fraser firs, breathing pine scent mixed with mountain air, I felt something I hadn't felt since holding Sarah's hand in that hospital room. Hope. The farm sat exactly 200 feet outside the Willowbrook Hills HOA boundary. I'd measured it myself with a surveyor's tape. Completely legal, completely mine. Then I met the Christmas tree queen herself. Magnolia Patterson rolled up in her white Range Rover like she owned the place. Picture your worst HOA nightmare. Perfectly coiffed blonde hair, tennis outfit that probably cost more than my truck payment, and that fake smile that never reaches the eyes. But here's what blew my mind. This woman wasn't just some busybody neighbor. She was running a full-scale Christmas tree racket with a brilliant criminal twist. Every October, Magnolia took pre-orders from 12 upscale neighborhoods. We're talking 400-plus families paying $120 to $180 per tree, thinking they were getting premium locally sourced Fraser firs from Patterson Farms. She collected $90,000 in deposits annually, with $90,000 balance due on delivery. Her business model was borderline genius if you ignore the fraud part. Source trees from desperate farmers, mark them up 400%, and deliver to wealthy suburbanites who didn't question anything as long as the trees looked premium. But here's her criminal masterstroke. When farmers refused to sell, Magnolia had developed a debt collection scheme to simply take what she wanted. The problem? She'd lost 2 supplier farms to development in 2024 and was sweating bullets about fulfilling $180,000 worth of customer orders. She'd already spent most of the deposits and desperately needed inventory to avoid fraud charges. The day after I signed the deed, Magnolia appeared at my gate like a perfectly manicured vulture. "Rex, honey," she purred, her nauseating floral perfume somehow drowning out the natural pine scent. "I'd like to propose a partnership. I handle all the premium Christmas tree sales around here. Established clientele, proven systems. You cut, I sell, we split, 60-40. I politely declined. Told her I planned to sell direct to families, keep things simple and honest. That's when the mask slipped completely. "You have no idea how Christmas trees work around here," she snapped, that sugar-sweet tone turning colder than a January morning. "I've got contracts to fulfill and customers who expect quality. I hope you don't make this difficult for yourself." As she drove away, I caught her photographing my best trees with a professional camera. But more disturbing, I saw her reviewing what looked like legal documents and taking notes about my property. My daughters were over the moon about the farm. Emma, my little accountant, was already planning profit margins and customer databases. Grace wanted to set up a hot chocolate stand and play Christmas music, watching them excited about something for the first time since their mom died. That was worth more than money. The math was tight but workable. I needed $25,000 for their college applications by spring. At $40 per tree direct to families, I could clear that easily and still have emergency funds. Local families were genuinely thrilled about having an authentic tree farm. No more highway robbery at big box stores or sketchy parking lot dealers. But Magnolia wasn't giving up. Over 2 weeks, I spotted her conducting surveillance and asking neighbors detailed questions about my finances, property ownership, and any potential debts. The biggest red flag? She started posting in neighborhood Facebook groups about abandoned commercial property and failed agricultural ventures with outstanding liens in the area. What I didn't realize was that Magnolia was already building a legal framework to steal my trees. She'd researched agricultural lien laws and was preparing forged documents to justify seizing my inventory as debt collection. She'd already sold my trees to 400+ families. I was just the obstacle standing between her and $180,000 in criminal profits. Week 1 after Thanksgiving, I got my first taste of Magnolia's sophisticated playbook. A certified letter arrived claiming I owed $25,000 in outstanding agricultural equipment liens to the previous farm owner's estate. The letterhead looked official: Millbrook County Agricultural Debt Recovery, complete with fancy logos and legal jargon that would scare most honest folks into immediate compliance. But this wasn't just intimidation. This was the foundation of her theft justification. My first instinct was panic. 25 grand I didn't have for equipment I'd never heard of? But then my army training kicked in. In Afghanistan, we learned to verify intel before acting on it because bad information gets people killed. I drove to the courthouse basement, where the musty smell of old paper and fluorescent lighting reminded me why most people avoid doing their own legal research. 3 hours later, digging through deed books that probably hadn't been touched since the Clinton administration, I had my answer. The previous owner died with no estate, no outstanding liens, no equipment debts. This letter was pure fiction. Even better, I discovered Magnolia had tried variations of this scam on 3 other local farmers in the past 2 years. Same fake letterhead, different bogus debt claims. 2 had paid money they didn't owe. 1 had sold his property to settle fabricated liens. While I was playing courthouse detective, Magnolia launched phase 2 of her legal framework. She filed a complaint with county code enforcement claiming my farm was abandoned commercial property operating without permits under outstanding agricultural liens. Her evidence? Photos of my property taken during the 1 weekend I'd driven the girls to visit their aunt in Richmond, because apparently taking your grieving teenagers to see family constitutes property abandonment. But here's where it got sophisticated. Magnolia had prepared fake agricultural lien documentation claiming she was the legal creditor authorized to seize my trees as collateral for the fabricated debt. The code enforcement officer who showed up looked genuinely confused. "Lady who called says this place has been abandoned and there are legal questions about ownership," he said, staring at my well-maintained trees and freshly painted barn. I handed over my clear deed, agricultural permit, business registration, and tax records. Everything spotless and legally documented. "Sorry to waste your time," he said, shaking his head. "We get false reports, but this one came with what looked like legal documentation. You might want to contact a lawyer about someone using your property in fraudulent claims." That's when Emma made her crucial discovery. My daughter was doing homework at the local coffee shop when Magnolia walked in, talking loudly on her phone while reviewing a stack of official-looking documents. "Yes, I can absolutely guarantee delivery of 200 premium Fraser firs by December 15th, Magnolia was saying, spreading papers across her table. Patterson Farms has legally acquired the finest Christmas trees in 3 counties through agricultural debt recovery. That's $24,000 for the whole lot, and I have the seizure documentation to prove legitimate ownership." Emma texted me immediately. "Dad, the HOA lady is selling trees and showing people legal papers that say she owns our farm somehow. This is really scary." That text hit me like ice water. Magnolia wasn't just harassing me for entertainment. She was building a complete legal fiction to justify grand theft, making it look legitimate to buyers and customers. I spent that evening diving deep into her social media presence, and what I found made my blood boil. She was advertising legally acquired premium Christmas trees from Patterson Farms' debt recovery operations across multiple platforms. Over 400 individual family orders, plus wholesale contracts with 8 Christmas tree lots. But the truly diabolical part was her customer communication strategy. Magnolia was telling pre-order customers that their trees needed additional growing time and specialized harvest timing to ensure premium quality. She'd convinced 400+ families to wait for December delivery while she figured out how to steal my inventory. The paperwork she was showing buyers was masterful forgery. Fake agricultural lien seizure orders, fraudulent debt recovery authorizations, and forged legal ownership transfer documents, all designed to make theft look like legitimate business. Then I looked up Patterson Farms in the state business registry and cross-referenced it with agricultural lien records. She'd registered the business 3 weeks after I bought my property and immediately filed fake lien claims against my farm using forged creditor documentation. The printer in my kitchen started working overtime as I documented everything. Screenshots of posts, copies of fake legal documents, photos of her surveillance activities. The smell of fresh ink became as familiar as morning coffee. The real circus started when confused customers began calling me directly. Families who'd paid deposits to Patterson Farms and been told their trees were coming from legally acquired agricultural inventory. "Sir, Magnolia Patterson showed us court documents proving she owns your trees through debt collection," one confused father told me. "She has official papers saying you defaulted on equipment loans." By week 3, the pressure was crushing her from all directions. $90,000 in customer deposits spent. Legal obligations to deliver $180,000 worth of trees she didn't own, and a growing paper trail of fraud that screamed criminal conspiracy. A smart criminal would have cut losses and disappeared. But Magnolia Patterson was too deep to back out now. She'd built an entire legal fiction and had to follow through or face federal fraud charges. December hit like a freight train, and Magnolia's desperation shifted into overdrive. First, my tree netting supplier called with devastating news. "Sorry, Rex, but we're suspending your account," the guy said, sounding genuinely uncomfortable. "Your business partner called yesterday reporting payment disputes and authorization problems." My blood ran cold. "What business partner? I don't have a business partner." 10 minutes of questioning revealed the ugly truth. Magnolia had called claiming to be my operations manager, complete with my account numbers and business details. She'd convinced them there were financial irregularities requiring immediate service suspension. The woman had done serious homework on my operation. This wasn't random harassment anymore. This was surgical business destruction. Over the next week, my entire supply chain collapsed like dominoes. Equipment rental canceled my chainsaw reservation. Transport company backed out of delivery contracts. Even my insurance agent called, voice tight with concern, asking about irregularities reported by a local business associate. The smell of diesel and panic filled my barn as I scrambled to find alternative suppliers at peak season prices. Every phone call cost me money I didn't have and time I couldn't spare. But Magnolia's real masterpiece was psychological warfare. She'd convinced her 300-plus pre-order customers that I was her subcontractor, the grunt who actually cut and prepared trees for the prestigious Patterson Farms. Families started calling me directly, demanding I honor pricing they'd negotiated with her fake business. "Sir, Magnolia Patterson said you work for her," an exasperated mother told me. "She showed us a signed contract with your farm as her exclusive supplier. My kids are expecting their tree next weekend." Contract? What goddamn contract? That's when Emma struck gold again. My daughter was researching a school project at the library when she spotted Magnolia hunched over a corner table with stacks of paperwork and what looked like a portable printer. Emma's got her mother's instincts for trouble. She snapped photos before Magnolia noticed. The images made my jaw drop. Fake partnership agreements between Patterson Farms and my actual farm, complete with forged signatures and official-looking corporate seals. The woman was literally manufacturing evidence of a business relationship that existed only in her criminal mind. But here's where things got interesting. Instead of panicking, I got strategic. I built a simple website explaining the difference between authentic farm direct sales and commercial markup schemes. Posted photos of my real trees, my actual permits, my daughters helping with harvest prep. The contrast with Magnolia's slick but empty marketing was obvious to anyone with half a brain. 50 families committed to buying direct from me, drawn by both lower prices and the authentic experience. Kids could pick their own trees while sipping Emma's hot chocolate recipe, the same one Sarah used to make. For the first time since the funeral, Christmas felt possible again. Magnolia responded like a cornered animal. Rumors started spreading that my trees were diseased, that I was an unstable veteran with anger management issues, that buying from me violated some imaginary HOA commercial traffic regulation. The irony was thick enough to cut with a chainsaw. She was calling me unstable while literally forging legal documents and stealing my livelihood. Then the petty theft started. My chainsaw vanished from the locked barn overnight, then my tree netting supplies, then my measuring equipment. Nothing valuable enough for police reports, but perfectly calibrated to disrupt operations during critical harvest season. I started sleeping in the farm trailer some nights, but the message was crystal clear. Magnolia had escalated from legal intimidation to actual crime. The breaking point came on a crisp December morning when I caught her red-handed. I was checking tree quality in the back section when I heard an engine purring nearby. Creeping through the Fraser fir rows, I spotted Magnolia's Range Rover parked brazenly at my property line. She was out with a measuring tape and professional camera, systematically cataloging my best trees like she was conducting a fucking inventory audit. Taking notes on tree heights, estimating board feet, marking GPS coordinates on her phone. When our eyes met across 50 yards of pine trees, she didn't even flinch. Just smiled that poisonous sweet smile, waved like we were old friends sharing a joke, and drove away with the casual confidence of someone who already considered my trees hers. That night, rage burning in my chest like acid, I made the decision that would change everything. I called Tommy Caldwell, a Christmas tree farmer 2 counties over who'd survived similar harassment. "You need cameras," he said without hesitation. "Professional ones, hidden deep. This lady's planning something catastrophic, and you need bulletproof evidence when it happens." Tommy recommended Jake Morrison, a private investigator who specialized in agricultural crime. For $500, Jake could dig into Magnolia's background and business operations. "Rex," Tommy's voice turned deadly serious, "people like this don't stop until they get what they want or get arrested. Assume she's watching your every move, document everything, and prepare for war." As December snow began dusting my trees, I realized this battle had moved beyond Christmas sales. This was about survival. Jake Morrison's background report hit my inbox like a sledgehammer to the gut, but it also gave me the ammunition I needed to fight back. Magnolia Patterson wasn't some entitled HOA president with delusions of grandeur. She was a serial agricultural fraudster running a 4-year criminal enterprise spanning 3 counties, with a specialty in fake debt collection schemes. The PI had uncovered everything. Bank records showing $800,000 in fraudulent agricultural lien collections over 4 years. A systematic pattern of targeting small farmers with legal intimidation, forged documents, and theft disguised as debt recovery. The smell of fresh coffee turned bitter in my mouth as I read about 6 family farms in Georgia destroyed by her identical scheme. Each time, she'd created fake debt documentation, filed fraudulent liens, then legally seized crops and property. "Rex," Jake said over the phone, "you need professional surveillance equipment immediately. This woman's planning something catastrophic, and you need bulletproof video evidence of every crime." That afternoon, Jake arrived with a surveillance technician who looked more like he belonged in a spy movie than rural Virginia. Within 3 hours, they'd installed 12 hidden cameras with 4K resolution and infrared night vision capabilities. "These babies are motion-activated with 50-yard audio pickup," the tech explained, his breath steaming in the December cold. "Everything uploads to secure cloud storage in real time. Even if they destroy the cameras, you'll have the evidence." The cameras vanished into my landscape like ghosts, hidden in hollow fence posts, camouflaged among pine branches, disguised as birdhouses so authentic I had to mark their locations to find them again. Strategic placement was everything. Jake positioned cameras to capture the premium tree section from multiple angles, access roads for vehicle identification, and the main transaction areas where money would change hands. "Think like a prosecutor," Jake advised. "You need clear footage of faces, license plates, equipment, and cash exchanges. Leave nothing to chance." The next morning brought a December frost so thick it looked like powdered sugar on my windshield. Through the diner's steamed windows, I spotted Magnolia in a back booth with 4 rough-looking guys in work clothes, papers spread across the table like a battle plan. I recognized the biggest one immediately. Bruce Patterson, her husband, whose construction company was hemorrhaging money faster than a punctured tire. The other 3 looked like the kind of crew who'd steal Christmas trees for beer money and sleep just fine afterward. Emma, channeling her inner spy, casually walked past their table heading to the restroom. My daughter had inherited Sarah's gift for seeming innocent while gathering intelligence. Her text made my blood freeze. "Dad, they're planning Friday night operation premium section, 2 truckloads minimum. Bruce has photos of our farm and something called a seizure authorization order." Friday was December 22nd, the night before my biggest sales weekend. Following diesel fumes and intuition, I tracked down Pete's Christmas tree lot 30 miles east. The owner, a weathered guy with tobacco-stained teeth, was surprisingly candid when I introduced myself as a fellow tree farmer. "Yeah, I got standing orders with Patterson Farms for debt recovery inventory," he admitted, spitting brown juice into a styrofoam cup. "Lady brings me wholesale trees with proper legal documentation. Legitimate seizure operations, all above board." "What kind of volume are we talking about?" Pete's answer nearly knocked me over. 500 premium Fraser firs this weekend. Already cleared warehouse space and hired crews for midnight unloading. She shows me court orders and seizure documents. Everything looks legal. 500 trees. My entire premium section. The college fund Emma and Grace were counting on. But the detail that made my head spin was Magnolia's documentation. Pete showed me photocopies of agricultural lien seizure orders and legal inventory recovery authorizations that looked authentic enough to fool most people. She'd created an entire fake legal framework to make grand theft appear legitimate to buyers. That evening brought Emma's most dangerous discovery yet. My tech-savvy daughter had been monitoring Magnolia's social media and found a private Facebook group called Patterson Farms Legal Recovery Operations with 347 members, all her customers. Magnolia was actively coordinating delivery schedules, showing customers her forged legal documents, and promising court-authorized premium Fraser firs seized through legitimate debt collection processes. The posts included photos of official-looking paperwork, legal team consultations, and agricultural recovery equipment being prepared for authorized seizure operations. Emma showed me Magnolia's financial tracking spreadsheet shared with customers. The numbers made my stomach lurch. $180,000 in total obligations, with $90,000 already collected as deposits and $90,000 due on delivery. Magnolia had painted herself into a corner where she had to steal my trees or face automatic federal fraud charges. She was financially trapped with zero alternatives. That realization hit me like ice water. A desperate criminal with everything to lose and a sophisticated legal cover story was the most dangerous kind. I made the call that would change everything. "Detective Walsh, this is Rex Thornfield. I think it's time we discuss that agricultural fraud case you're building. I've got video surveillance ready and a theft operation planned for Friday night." As December wind rattled my windows, I stared at my trees standing sentinel in the moonlight, now protected by invisible electronic guardians. Friday night, this nightmare would end with crystal-clear evidence. Detective Walsh arrived at my farm the next morning carrying a banker's box that would shatter everything I thought I knew about Magnolia Patterson and explain why the FBI had been waiting for someone like me. "Rex, you're not dealing with some petty HOA president," she said, spreading files across my kitchen table while the morning coffee grew cold. "Magnolia Patterson is running the most sophisticated agricultural fraud ring we've ever investigated, and you're our first chance to catch her on video." The first photo she showed me was a farmhouse in Georgia, burned to the foundation. The second was an elderly couple holding bankruptcy papers. The third was a suicide note from a veteran who'd lost his family's century-old farm. All victims of Magnolia's debt collection scheme. Over 4 years, she systematically destroyed 43 family farms across 3 states, Detective Walsh continued, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. The pattern's identical. Fake debt documentation, fraudulent lien filings, then legal seizure of crops and property. My hands trembled as I flipped through victim statements. Stories eerily similar to mine. Bogus debt claims, forged legal papers, crop theft disguised as court-authorized recovery operations. But here's what made my stomach turn. Magnolia wasn't working alone, and she'd perfected her system through years of practice. Detective Walsh spread out surveillance photos showing a criminal network that operated like a law firm. Bruce Patterson's construction company provided equipment and muscle. A corrupt agricultural inspector named Martin Cruz created fake safety violations to support seizure claims. And a disbarred lawyer named David Sterling manufactured fraudulent legal paperwork that looked authentic to victims and buyers. "We've been investigating this network for 8 months, Walsh explained. But every previous case has been financial fraud after the fact. Victims discovered the theft weeks or months later. By then, evidence was destroyed and assets were laundered. The scope was staggering. 11 different fake business entities across multiple states, all designed to steal agricultural products and sell them as legally recovered inventory to unsuspecting buyers. But the revelation that made my blood boil was personal and explained why they'd targeted my family specifically. "Rex, remember your wife's medical bills and the insurance settlement?" Detective Walsh asked gently. "Magnolia researched every detail of your financial situation. She knew exactly how desperate you were when you bought this farm. Sarah's cancer treatment, our debt situation, even the girl's college needs. Everything had been documented, analyzed, and weaponized against our family. Magnolia had targeted us not randomly, but because we fit her victim profile perfectly: financially vulnerable, emotionally devastated, and legally isolated. She's not just a thief," I whispered, rage building in my chest like a pressure cooker. "She's a predator who feeds on grieving families." Detective Walsh nodded grimly. "And your farm represents her biggest score yet. She owes customers $180,000 in Christmas tree deliveries with a 72-hour deadline. If she can't steal and deliver your trees by Christmas Eve, her entire operation collapses and automatic fraud charges trigger." But here's why the FBI had been waiting 8 months for someone exactly like me. "Rex, we need video evidence of active theft to make federal charges stick," Walsh explained. "Every previous victim only discovered the crime after their crops were gone and sold. Your security cameras represent our first opportunity to catch this network committing felonies in real time." She handed me a pre-signed federal search warrant for Magnolia's entire operation: properties, bank accounts, business records, the works, ready to execute the moment she committed theft on camera. "We're not just catching a Christmas tree thief. We're dismantling a criminal organization that's destroyed dozens of families like yours, but everything depends on Friday night's video evidence." The weight of that responsibility settled on my shoulders. This wasn't about my trees anymore. It was about justice for 43 families who'd lost everything, including that Georgia veteran who couldn't live with losing his heritage. "Detective," I said, staring at photos of families destroyed by Magnolia's sophisticated fraud, "let's send this entire network to federal prison where they belong." As Walsh gathered her files, the smell of pine needles drifted through my kitchen window. Trees that now represented justice for dozens of destroyed families. Friday night, we'd capture the evidence needed to end this criminal enterprise forever. Word count: 600. Những segments này đã được cải thiện với logic chặt chẽ hơn, timeline rõ ràng, và vẫn giữ nguyên excitement cùng title accuracy. That afternoon, my quiet farm transformed into a law enforcement staging ground that would make a Navy SEAL operation jealous. Detective Walsh arrived with a tactical team that looked more like they belonged in a Tom Cruise movie than rural Virginia. The smell of fresh electronics and camera equipment filled my barn as they unpacked gear worth more than my truck. "These cameras record in 4K with infrared night vision," the lead technician explained, his breath steaming in the December cold. "Motion sensors, 50-yard audio pickup, and real-time upload to our mobile command center. If a squirrel farts in your tree section, we'll have evidence." Within 2 hours, 12 cameras had vanished into my landscape like ghosts, hidden in hollow fence posts, camouflaged among pine branches, disguised as birdhouses that looked so authentic I almost fooled myself. The real artistry was in the bait preparation. Detective Walsh and I spent the golden hour before sunset strategically selecting victim trees. We needed specimens that would make Magnolia's criminal mouth water. Perfect 20-foot Fraser firs positioned where trucks could access them without getting stuck in December mud. "Think like a thief with expensive customers," Walsh advised as we marked trees with tiny paint dots. "Which ones would you grab if you had 2 hours to steal $50,000 worth of Christmas trees?" The answer was obvious: the magnificent specimens closest to the access road, trees that screamed premium quality to buyers willing to pay $150+ each. Meanwhile, I played my role as clueless farmer with Oscar-worthy performance. Social media became my stage: photos of trees ready for weekend harvest, innocent posts about being excited for our biggest sales weekend, and casual mentions of staying in town Friday night to visit Sarah's grave. Emma and Grace joined the deception with posts about helping Dad with his final tree prep and can't wait for families to find their perfect Christmas trees. We were painting a picture of a defenseless family operation ripe for the picking, but underneath the innocent facade we were building a tactical fortress. Jake Morrison had mapped Magnolia's crew movements with military precision. Bruce Patterson's construction trucks would approach via the back logging road, using tree cover to avoid highway visibility. They'd want to work fast and silent, cut, load, and vanish before dawn. Professional thieves work in 2-hour windows, Jake explained, spreading aerial photos across my kitchen table like a battlefield map. Any longer and neighbors start noticing unusual activity. The timing would determine everything. Too early an intervention and we'd miss the conspiracy charges that would destroy her entire network. Too late and my daughter's college fund would be firewood. Detective Walsh positioned 8 undercover officers in a perfect perimeter around my property, close enough for rapid response, far enough to avoid detection by Magnolia's paranoid surveillance habits. The moment she cuts the first tree, we have grand theft, Walsh explained, her eyes reflecting the kitchen light like a predator's. But we need the complete transaction, cutting, loading, transport, and cash exchange, for the federal charges that will put her organization away permanently. That meant watching criminals literally chainsaw my family's future, while police counted felonies like poker chips. The psychological pressure felt like carrying a backpack full of concrete. Every glance at those trees showed me Emma and Grace's tuition disappearing one cut at a time. But I also saw justice for 43 families destroyed by Magnolia's greed. Thursday evening brought the confirmation call I'd been dreading and craving. Emma's voice was electric with nervous energy. "Dad, Magnolia just posted that premium Fraser firs will be professionally harvested Friday night for Saturday morning delivery. She's telling customers to expect confirmation calls by 8 a.m. Saturday." The criminal countdown had officially begun. Sleep was impossible Thursday night. Every sound became a threat. Wind through branches sounded like chainsaws. Distant truck engines made my heart hammer against my ribs like a trapped bird. I spent the dark hours walking among my trees, pressing my palms against bark that felt warm despite the freezing air. These Fraser firs represented everything. Sarah's insurance money, the girls' education, our family's survival, and now justice for strangers whose lives had been shattered by the same criminal who was targeting us. The irony wasn't lost on me. Tomorrow night, I'd use my trees as bait to catch the woman who'd been circling my family like a vulture since Thanksgiving. Friday. Dawn broke crystal clear and bitter cold, the kind of morning that makes pine needles crunch underfoot like glass. Everything was ready. Cameras charged, police positioned, evidence files organized like ammunition. Emma brought me coffee in Sarah's favorite mug, her young face tight with worry and determination. "Mom would be proud of what you're doing, Dad. Standing up to bullies, protecting other families." As steam rose from the coffee and mixed with my breath in the frigid air, I realized my daughter was right. Tonight, we'd honor Sarah's memory by ensuring no other family suffered what we had. Friday morning brought 3 phone calls that made my blood turn to ice water. First was Janet Miller from Channel 7 News, voice bubbling with fake enthusiasm. "Mr. Thornfield, we'd love to do a live segment tomorrow about your heartwarming Christmas tree farm. A disabled veteran bringing joy to families. Our viewers would absolutely love that story." I politely declined, but the message was clear. Someone was trying to flood my property with media attention, right when Detective Walsh needed it quiet for the sting operation. Second call came an hour later. "Detective Walsh," her voice sharp as broken glass. "Rex, Magnolia's people just filed an emergency injunction claiming you're operating an illegal commercial business. They want all tree sales stopped immediately pending a court hearing." The legal papers arrived by courier before lunch, reeking of expensive cologne and desperation. David Sterling, the crooked lawyer in Magnolia's network, had crafted a masterpiece of legal intimidation. Zoning violations, safety hazards, unauthorized commercial activity. Enough bureaucratic bullshit to bury a small farmer in paperwork. But here's what made my hands shake. The injunction took effect at midnight Friday, exactly when Detective Walsh expected the theft to begin. Magnolia was creating legal cover for her crime. If my operation was illegal, then seizing my abandoned inventory became a public service, not grand theft. The woman was trying to steal my trees and claim she was protecting the community. Third call came from Emma, monitoring social media from school. Her voice cracked with nervous energy. "Dad, Magnolia just posted that tonight's harvest will proceed under emergency agricultural protocols to prevent tree spoilage. She's telling 347 customers to expect delivery calls by dawn." She was literally announcing her planned theft to hundreds of people and calling it emergency agriculture. But the detail that made Detective Walsh curse like a wounded Marine was the timing change. Magnolia had moved the operation from midnight to 10 p.m., compressing our response window and increasing civilian risk. That meant Emma and Grace would still be awake when criminals invaded our property. I immediately called their aunt in Richmond, my voice steady despite the panic clawing at my chest. "Linda, the girls need to visit you tonight. Family emergency, they'll explain later." As Emma packed her overnight bag, the smell of her strawberry shampoo mixing with pine scent from the window made my throat tight. She hugged me with tears streaming down her face. "Dad, promise me you'll be careful. Mom would never forgive us if anything happened to you fighting these horrible people." The weight of her words hit me like a sledgehammer. I was risking my life and my daughter's future to catch criminals who'd already destroyed 43 families. But the alternative was letting Magnolia win and watching her destroy the next victim. By afternoon, the pressure was building like a thunderstorm. 3 more confused families called demanding pickup schedules for Patterson Farms orders. A county inspector showed up asking about noise complaints and commercial activity violations. My insurance agent called with urgent concerns about liability coverage. Magnolia's network was applying coordinated pressure, trying to rattle me into shutting down or making fatal mistakes. The breaking point came at 4 p.m. when Bruce Patterson rolled up to my gate with 2 construction gorillas and a clipboard full of fake authority. "Rex, we're here about the emergency tree removal," Bruce announced, his voice oozing false concern. "County inspector says these trees are diseased and pose a public safety hazard. We're authorized for immediate removal." I stepped outside, December air biting my lungs as I fought to keep my voice level. "Show me the paperwork, Bruce." He handed over documents that looked official but smelled like pure bullshit. Emergency Agricultural Removal Order, signed by Martin Cruz, the corrupt inspector Detective Walsh had been tracking for months. "Get off my property," I said quietly, thinking of Sarah's grave and my daughter's future. "You have no authority here, and every word you're speaking is being recorded." Bruce's confident mask cracked just enough to show the desperation underneath. "You're making this harder than it needs to be, Rex. We could make this easy for everyone." "The only thing that's going to be easy," I replied, staring into his nervous eyes, "is watching you people get arrested for destroying families." As their trucks disappeared down my driveway, I caught Bruce frantically making phone calls. The crew was getting spooked, probably realizing their intimidation tactics had failed completely. Detective Walsh arrived as sunset painted my Fraser furs in gold and crimson light, like a Christmas card written in fire. "Final briefing time, Rex," she said, her breath steaming in the frigid air. "In 6 hours, this nightmare ends permanently." As we reviewed camera positions and arrest procedures one last time, the December wind carried the scent of pine sap and approaching justice. Tonight, Magnolia Patterson's criminal empire would fall like timber. Friday evening brought the longest hours of my life, each minute crawling by like wounded time. At 6 p.m., Detective Walsh positioned her mobile command center in Tommy Caldwell's abandoned barn half a mile away. The back of her unmarked van looked like something from a spy movie, 12 monitors showing crystal-clear feeds from cameras I still couldn't spot in my own trees. "Every angle of your premium section is covered," she assured me, the green glow from the screens making her face look ghostly. "The moment they start cutting, we'll have enough evidence to bury them under federal prison." But Magnolia wasn't making this simple. At 7 p.m., my phone rang with a number that made my caller ID flash State Agriculture. A woman's voice, professional but urgent. "Mr. Thornfield, this is Dr. Sarah Colin from the Agricultural Inspection Division. We've received emergency reports of diseased trees threatening neighboring properties. We need immediate access for nighttime assessment." Pure bullshit wrapped in official terminology. The real agricultural department had been closed since 4 p.m., and Detective Walsh had confirmed no legitimate inspections were scheduled. "Ma'am, you'll need to schedule that through proper channels on Monday," I replied, my Army training keeping my voice level while my heart hammered like machine gun fire. "They're probing," Detective Walsh's voice crackled through my earpiece. "Testing if you're actually home and alert. Textbook criminal reconnaissance." At 8 p.m., the December air turned sharp enough to cut glass, my breath steaming as snow clouds gathered overhead like an ominous ceiling. I retreated to my trailer as planned, lights blazing to suggest normal evening routine while actually positioning myself with clear sight lines and communication equipment. The waiting felt like being buried alive in anxiety. Every sound became a threat assessment. Wind rattling my windows sounded like approaching vehicles, distant highway noise mimicked truck engines. Even my own breathing seemed too loud for safety. Then Emma called from Richmond, her voice tight with the kind of fear that cuts straight through a father's heart. Dad, Magnolia just posted her final update to the customer group. Tactical harvest crew deploying for immediate inventory extraction. Premium trees will be secured and processed within 2-hour operational window. She's talking like this is some kind of military assault. Military terminology. That detail made my blood turn cold as the December air outside. Magnolia wasn't just planning theft. She was conducting a paramilitary operation with professional criminals. At 9 p.m., Detective Walsh's voice exploded through my earpiece. Rex, we have contact. 3 vehicles approaching your back access road, running silent with infrared navigation. This is not amateur hour. I switched to the camera app on my phone and watched my peaceful tree farm transform into a war zone in real time. 3 black vehicles emerged from the forest like mechanical predators. A professional equipment truck loaded with chainsaws and loading gear, a flatbed trailer for transport, and what looked like an armored chase vehicle for security. 6 figures in tactical black clothing deployed with military precision, carrying equipment that belonged in a special operations arsenal rather than a tree theft. Night vision goggles, professional communication headsets, and chainsaws that probably cost more than my truck. Holy shit, Detective Walsh whispered over the radio. These guys move like they've done this 100 times. Rex, stay down and trust the process. Through the green-tinted camera feeds, I watched Bruce Patterson directing his crew with hand signals, while Magnolia stood beside her white Range Rover, clutching what appeared to be thick envelopes, cash payments for buyers she'd already arranged. At 9:15 p.m., the first chainsaw screamed to life. That mechanical roar cutting through the December silence hit me like a physical blow. I was watching criminals systematically destroy trees that Sarah's life insurance had helped grow, trees that represented Emma and Grace's college dreams being cut down and stolen one Fraser fir at a time. Each fallen tree was $150 ripped from my daughter's future, but Detective Walsh held her tactical team back with iron discipline. We need the complete transaction for federal charges, loading, transport, and cash exchange. Do not let emotion compromise 4 months of investigation. At 9:30 p.m., headlights appeared on the main highway. Pete's Christmas tree lot truck arriving exactly on schedule to purchase stolen merchandise, driving straight into our federal sting like a moth into flame. The irony tasted bitter as December air. Tomorrow morning, families would buy these stolen trees to celebrate Christmas, never knowing their holiday decorations represented the destruction of another family's dreams. At 9:45 p.m., Pete stepped out carrying a thick envelope while Magnolia approached with obvious satisfaction. They shook hands like legitimate business partners surrounded by $20,000 worth of stolen Christmas trees. All units, Detective Walsh's voice cut through the radio static like a sword. Transaction in progress. Prepare for coordinated federal arrest. 4 months of investigation ends now. As 8 tactical officers moved into final positions, I realized this nightmare was about to end in the next 60 seconds, either with justice finally served or with my family destroyed forever. At 9:47 p.m., Detective Walsh's voice cut through the radio silence like a battle cry. Go, go, go! Federal agents execute arrest warrants! The December night exploded into chaos. 8 tactical officers emerged from the darkness like avenging angels, their flashlights turning my tree farm into a blazing crime scene. The smell of diesel exhaust mixed with pine sap as truck engines revved and chainsaws died mid-cut. Federal agents, drop your weapons and get on the ground! Bruce Patterson's crew scattered like roaches when the lights hit, but there was nowhere to run. Officers had positioned themselves in a perfect perimeter, cutting off every escape route through the Fraser fir maze. I watched through my cameras as Magnolia's face went from triumphant greed to pure terror in the span of 2 seconds. The thick envelope of cash fell from her hands, bills scattering across the frozen ground like evidence confetti. "This is a mistake!" she screamed at Detective Walsh, her perfect suburban composure cracking like ice. "These are abandoned trees. I have legal documentation." "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent," Walsh replied coolly, pulling out handcuffs that gleamed under the tactical lights. "And I strongly suggest you use it." But Magnolia wasn't going quietly. "You don't understand," she shrieked, pointing at me emerging from my trailer. "He's operating illegally. I'm protecting the community from commercial violations. Check the paperwork." Detective Walsh held up a thick folder that made Magnolia's face drain of color. "You mean these forged documents from your fake law firm? Or maybe the fraudulent inspection reports from your corrupt agricultural inspector?" We've been watching your entire criminal network for 8 months." The buyers from Pete's Christmas tree lot stood frozen beside their truck, cash envelopes still in hand, suddenly realizing they'd driven straight into a federal sting operation. "Officer, we had no idea these trees were stolen," Pete stammered, hands raised like he was surrendering to an army. "The lady said she owned a legitimate farm operation." "Save it for your lawyer," Walsh replied, signaling for additional officers to secure the scene. But here's where Magnolia made her final, fatal mistake. As Detective Walsh reached for her handcuffs, Magnolia's desperation exploded into rage. "This is bullshit. That broken-down veteran doesn't deserve to own anything. He's too stupid and weak to run a real business." The words hung in the December air like poison gas. Every officer, every criminal, every person on that property went dead silent. You don't insult a disabled veteran in front of law enforcement and expect sympathy. "Ma'am," Detective Walsh said, her voice dropping to absolute zero, "you just sealed your own fate." That's when the media arrived. Channel 7's news van pulled up just as officers were loading Magnolia into the patrol car, her perfectly styled hair now disheveled and her tennis outfit dirty from struggling against arrest. Sarah Collin, the same reporter Magnolia had tried to use against me earlier, stepped out with a camera crew and immediately recognized the story of a lifetime. "This is Sarah Collin reporting live from what appears to be a major agricultural crime bust," she announced, her professional voice crackling with excitement. "Federal agents have just arrested multiple suspects in what sources describe as a sophisticated Christmas tree theft operation." The irony was delicious. Magnolia had tried to weaponize media attention against me, and now that same media was broadcasting her criminal downfall to the entire region. As officers cataloged evidence, Detective Walsh revealed the scope of the bust to the news cameras. This criminal organization has stolen over $800,000 worth of agricultural products from 43 family farms across 3 states, she announced, holding up boxes of evidence. Tonight's arrest represents the culmination of an 8-month federal investigation into organized agricultural fraud. But my favorite moment came when Sarah Collin turned to interview me. "Mr. Thornfield, how does it feel to help bring down this criminal enterprise?" I looked directly into the camera, thinking of Emma and Grace watching from their aunt's house, and delivered the line I'd been waiting 4 months to say. "Sometimes the little guy wins when he's got the law, the evidence, and the truth on his side," I said, the smell of justice mixing with December pine scent. And Magnolia Patterson just learned that stealing from a disabled veteran's family was the biggest mistake of her entitled life. As Magnolia was driven away in handcuffs, still screaming about unfair treatment and veteran privilege, Detective Walsh handed me a preliminary asset seizure notice. "Rex, we've frozen $180,000 in stolen proceeds from her bank accounts, plus her house, vehicles, and business assets. You and the other victims will be made whole." The December wind carried the scent of chainsaw exhaust and sweet revenge as I watched my stolen trees being reloaded onto legitimate trucks for return to my property. 4 months of hell had finally ended with justice served ice cold. Christmas Eve morning dawned crystal clear and brutally cold, the kind of day that makes snow crunch underfoot like broken glass, and pine needles glitter with frost. But for the first time since Sarah's death, I woke up feeling genuine happiness. The immediate aftermath was swift and satisfying. Magnolia received 3 years federal prison, $200,000 in restitution, and 5 years probation. Bruce Patterson got 18 months for conspiracy. The entire criminal network, fake inspectors, crooked lawyers, corrupt buyers, fell like dominoes in coordinated federal raids. Best of all, I recovered $74,000 from frozen criminal accounts. Combined with Christmas Eve sales that broke every record I could have imagined, Emma and Grace's college fund was fully secured. But the real gift came Christmas morning. Families who'd planned to buy from Patterson Farms drove directly to my property instead. Word had spread through social media and local news about the veteran who'd taken down a criminal empire to protect his trees and his community. The line of cars stretched half a mile down my access road. "Dad, look at this," Emma said, tears streaming down her face as she watched families walking through our Fraser firs. "Mom would be so proud." She was right. Sarah had always believed in fighting for what's right, no matter the personal cost. Watching these families create Christmas memories on our farm felt like honoring her legacy. The community response was overwhelming. Local veterans organized security for my weekend sales. Churches brought hot chocolate and Christmas cookies. Even the legitimate Christmas tree lots sent customers my way, respecting what I'd done to clean up their industry. Detective Walsh stopped by Christmas afternoon with news that made the day even sweeter. "Rex, your evidence helped us identify victims across 12 states," she said, the smell of pine mixing with victory in the crisp air. 43 families are getting restitution payments, and the FBI is using your case as a training model for agricultural crime investigation. But perhaps the most satisfying moment came when Emma showed me a local news interview with some of Magnolia's former customers. "We feel so stupid," one woman admitted to the camera. "We paid premium prices thinking we were supporting local agriculture, but we were actually funding crime against the very farmers we thought we were helping." The education impact was spreading beyond my farm. People were learning to verify their sources, support legitimate local businesses, and recognize the signs of agricultural fraud. Within 6 months, I'd helped establish the Sarah Thornfield Memorial Agricultural Protection Program, a scholarship fund that provides legal assistance to small farmers facing criminal harassment. The program has already helped 15 families fight off similar schemes across Virginia. Emma and Grace both got into their first-choice colleges with full academic scholarships, but they chose to defer enrollment for a year to help expand our farm operation. Watching my daughters develop the same fighting spirit their mother possessed has been worth more than any financial recovery. The farm itself has grown beyond my wildest dreams. We now operate 40 acres of premium Christmas trees, host an annual agricultural crime awareness festival, and provide consultation services for farmers facing similar harassment. Tommy Caldwell jokes that I've become the most famous Christmas tree farmer in Virginia, but the real satisfaction comes from knowing we protected other families from Magnolia's predatory schemes. This fall, we received our first letter from a family in North Carolina who used our example to fight off agricultural fraudsters targeting their generational farm. They kept their land, prosecuted the criminals, and sent us a photo of their kids playing in the same fields their great-grandparents had farmed. That's when you know the fight was worth it. As I write this, snow is falling on healthy Fraser firs that represent so much more than Christmas trees. They represent the power of standing up to bullies, the importance of community support, and the memory of a woman who taught her family that some fights are worth everything.
Thanks for hanging out with us on HOA Stories, where the HOA Karens meet their match. If this story had you cheering or cringing, go ahead and like the video. Drop a comment with your reaction, and hit subscribe so you're ready for the next wild HOA tale.